I'll just show you your seat there, Chris. You sit there. Andrew there. Actually, you sit next to there. David there. Prior to commencing the formal part of the conference, I need to indicate to Chris and his parents that in spite of the fact of Chris having made a statement with the investigating police officer at the station when you were there, Mr. Cohn, where Chris admitted his involvement in this particular incident, I'm obliged to tell Chris that if he wants to, he can leave the conference at any point, but if he does, I'm obliged to place this matter before the court. Do you understand that, Chris?
Yep. And he got out of his car and just started chasing me. I kept running and he finally caught me.
I'd like to start with asking the girls that are here to tell us what the incident was that we're all here for tonight.
Well, Becky and I were skipping a class, and we wanted to go out and smoke, so we looked for a car that was unlocked, and we just got in and we started goofing around, I guess.
I was hurt. I was angry. I was crying. I was mad.
Seeing that he doesn't appear to be such a bad kid, but at the time, like I said, I was very angry.
And I understand that you've been off work.
Since the incident, yeah. I've had to have 6 weeks off so far, and it doesn't look like I'll be back at work for at least a couple more.
Well, when I got a phone call from the hospital, because I was at work at the time, and they told me my husband had been taken in and he had a broken leg.
I think seeing the other kids suffer and my daughter being harassed at school and ostracised a bit because of what her brother's done, and then the guilt of having to live with Mr. Vassilo's pain.
I was shocked at the amount of goods that were taken for children. I just couldn't believe it. And I was really hurt.
I don't want to have to put up the signs that say only 2 children allowed at the time and shoplifters will be prosecuted, because I want my place to be a place where people feel at home. And so I no longer feel that way about my business. And that really hurts me.
Well, I certainly feel that there needs to be an apology. And if Taryn is having problems getting to and from work, then perhaps my daughter could provide transportation.
I think that for me that you should do some community service and apologize to the student body, because a lot of people have come up to me. A lot of them are hurt over what you did.
I'm sorry, Taryn. I'm sorry. I didn't want it to turn out like this.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Taryn. I guess I didn't really think that it would turn out this way. I mean, we never meant to hurt anybody, and we didn't mean to hurt you.
I'm sorry.
From a Maori perspective, and it was the Maori people who originally, hundreds of years ago, came up with the idea of the Community Accountability Conference as a way of dealing with crime. For them, the Western way of transacting justice is barbaric. To have the offender stand alone, isolated, confronting the guilt of his offence is an act of barbarism. And their conception of shame, the Maori conception of shame, wakama, is the shame that you feel in the eyes of your community. It's not the Western idea of individual guilt, it's a communitarian kind of shame. And therefore, they say that what ought to happen is that the accused person ought to stand beside, surrounded by those who love and care for him, those who are respected by him, that they're the people who can shame effectively, and they're the people who can offer social support during a difficult time.
No one who's experienced a conference would ever agree that it is anything but an excruciating process, but it is humane, and participant satisfaction is something that has become quite important, and it allows victims a say in a way that they have never been invited to before.
I was glad that we did it this way instead of going through the courts. I thought that was really good. And I felt that I could, like, finally, you know, since I know the reason, I know that they were sorry, that I could just, like, okay, I can go on now. I mean, it's not something I'm gonna dwell on or anything.
The old system makes a victim again by them losing all control, the police taking over and the court system taking over. This, I think, assists the victim in helping themselves.
I don't really think they totally understood until we sat there and told them face to face that you hurt her terribly.
If these young people had been charged by the law and had gone through the process of juvenile court and those sorts of processes, I don't have any doubt that it would have perpetuated the process of aggression within them. I don't have any doubt that it would have perpetuated the feelings and behaviour of victimisation on the part of my son.
The other boy felt quite ashamed of himself, and my son actually told him that he'd forgiven him and that he understood. And since then, although they haven't become great friends, they are able to communicate and say hello, and there's no aggression or anything there now where there was before.
And I think the response from the young people when their parents and brothers and sisters were saying how they felt was the point that made me realise that they were taking something in. I began then to think, you know, this is definitely working. They've never ever thought about anybody before in this way.
I learnt from the conference that how other people feel when they've had that sort of thing done to them.
Now, no one would argue against the right to silence, the right to legal representation and competent counsel. But what we also suggest is that what lawyers can't offer and don't want to offer is the opportunity for the young offender to be educated from this experience. Young offenders have the right to learn the consequences of their crime. They have the right to understand how many other people it affects. They have the right to develop as full human beings through this process. Now, if you let the opportunity slip by handing it over to lawyers, you deny them all those developmental rights.
I felt bad, like I felt, you know, I made her cry sort of thing, and I felt low, sort of, you know, ashamed that I'd done it in front of her sort of thing, and that she'd seen me do it, you know, maybe she'll go out and hit one of her friends or something. I felt like a bad example, you know.
I believe that when you isolate the offender, it doesn't help develop empathy, it doesn't help develop a consciousness. What it does actually is to allow that person to be removed from the act. And in family conferencing, what he or she has to do is to look at the act and have a sense of what it is that person has done that has affected another human being.
For shaming to be effective, it should be of a reintegrative sort, a sort where disapproval is expressed within a continuum of respect, as opposed to stigmatising, outcasting kinds of shaming, which can actually make things worse.
I committed the crime, I shot somebody, and it's like, I've been here for 3 years, and up to now, sitting and listening to what they was talking about with the family conference, I realized that I hurt so many people. I just ain't hurt the victim. I hurt my family members, the people around me, everybody that got to deal with me, and I got to deal with them. I hurted everybody. I hurted a lot of people and just instead of them. And that's all I thought I was doing, hurt him, you know, but I hurted a lot of people within that process.
Family group conferencing could be so good to help reform the reality of young people, because their reality is so stark and so cold and so selfish and so hard until they grow up unconcerned with no human compassion.
It's not until you bring it down to a personal level that kids have to accept their guilt and have to come to terms with it, and family group conferencing is the way to do that.
Being dealt with through the courts, it's just they're shuffled in and out of the courtroom, and that they walk away just unaware of what's happened. Well, what was all that about? Oh, you're off, you're free, see you later. But coming to these conferences, they actually see what they've done to their family as well as themselves.
For 20 or 30 years, politicians have been falling over themselves to get tougher with crime. We seem to engage in a debate every election to see who can be tough with crime. I think this gives us an opportunity to get smart with crime and to try and get young offenders off the treadmill of reoffending.
I was really ashamed. I felt just so bad seeing everyone saying there was just so much feeling there. It was just everyone was crying and everyone was just saying what they felt and everything, and it just made you feel really bad. So it really hit home. It's better than any other consequence.
I was amazed. I thought it was really good that a policeman actually sit down and try to work things out in that perspective instead of just paperwork, filing and just, okay, your court date's this day. I thought this was really good. This will work, and it worked.
This is real live community-based policing. It's the police exercising their authority and legitimacy to run this kind of a program, and it works.
I've been a detective for 20 years and I was a bit cynical about it when I first heard about it. I thought it was a bit too airy-fairy. And we looked at it and it was fully explained to us. And I was very keen to sit in on one of the conferences to see how it went before I made the decision. And having sat in on 2 in one night, I was quite surprised how well they went and how the people interacted and responded to it. And from there on in, we was full ahead with it.
You have to understand that our children see police as an adversary. That's right. Not as a helper. Right. So if they see a policeman involved in family group conferencing, they will see a whole different reality than what they have concocted in their minds about the policeman being the enemy.
I don't think they really gave it much thought when they committed the acts. And now they know how someone else feels. And again, the 2 that I've been involved with, you can see a general remorse and being upset, realizing what they've done, and not only hurting the victims, but they've hurt their own families in the same process.
There really is something magical that happens. I'm convinced of it. And that young person involved in family group conferencing really has a feeling for what he's done to the victim that he's offended, and what he's done to his family as a result of this offense. And I'm convinced that he can't feel that in any other kind of a process that we have.
I guess I'm disappointed. I feel bad. I don't want her to get in trouble with any professors or anything.
I think one of the main issues is that I was put in a really uncomfortable position And I think the other issue is that people were making accusations about Jim.
I felt after having the conference that it allowed all of us to go back and work together without the tension.
After going through the training and participating in a fairly serious incident involving an arson, and then actually conducting or facilitating a conference on a serious assault, I found it to be different. I feel that it could be used in a wide spectrum of cases, not just, as I initially thought, preventative measures or very not serious cases.
There's absolutely nothing I could say. The fact is, you've lost your son, you know, to a selfish act, and which I'm responsible for, and I can't change it.
Instead of just getting suspended and then just coming back to school like nothing ever happened, you talk about it so then you can know who it affected.
If they'd just suspended my son and nothing else, I don't think that the message would have got through to him as well.
For those people who would comment that it was a bleeding heart program, I'd say come along and watch it and watch some serious butt being kicked, because that's what happens. We've seen particular offenders had some fairly torrid times imposed upon them during the conferencing process.
I notice now that I take people's feelings into considerations a lot more than I used to.
It has allowed me to really open up the dialogue between the kids who have been injured and the kids who have been doing the hurting, and truly come to reparation of harm. They truly have been able to come to an agreement on how they're going to heal the harm and make things better for everybody. And these are kids that need to be back in a classroom together, so we need to do that.
I felt better knowing that I could say it to them and have them know how much they hurt me and how much that offended me.